Welcome everyone. We're all familiar, so I think we know whilst we're here. For the sake of the recording, I'm Maggie Wissam, and here's my beloved Ava. And we are hosting the call today. Cynthia is at Ghost Ranch, crafting those third generation vessels with the stewards. So our purpose here today is to create a sacred circle that will further enable them. Let me read you a text from Cynthia this morning. Hello, lovelies. Just to say that the retreat is going to such depths that I am in awe. Profound healing is occurring between all our relations, and the pots have been made. Much more still to come, but we are well on our way, sharing the blessings from Ghost Ranch with you all. One. So, yes, our intent is the creating of a circle that will potentize the work there at Ghost Ranch and offer the blessings from ourselves. Dick Kendra has offered to do the opening prayers and bells. Ava's just had a big tooth removed, so she's a little tender in the mouth and the voice at the moment, but she will do the prayer from Cynthia West after the poem. I'll start with doing the talk first this time, and then we'll go into our usual meditation, the sitting, the walking, the sitting. To begin our talk, I'd actually like to start with a small ritual meditation, just very briefly, just to set our sacred circle in place. So, dear Kendra, would you give us 3 bells that will lead us in? Taking a breath, becoming aware of the breathing in and the breathing out, the receiving in and the giving of life. Become aware of all of us here now standing in a circle with our arms outstretched to the sides, extending towards each other. Turn your left palm upwards in openness to receive the other, the beloved. Turn your right hand palm downwards in readiness to give to the other, to be their beloved. Now join hands so that we become a circle of lovers and beloveds. Now become aware that there are many other circles inside our circle, and that there are many other circles ringing outward beyond our circle. That indeed we are a part of these many, many greater nested circles. Then notice that these circles are not separate. They too are joined one to the other. These many circles form a great spiral. and that this great spiral in itself is held within the great round of life. It is an unbroken chain of which we are a part. A circle within the spiral, within the great round of life. We acknowledge and dedicate that our purpose here today is to hold with and ennoble that circle of our fellow beloveds who are presently at Ghost Ranch, crafting this third generation of Earth treasure vases. Now, whilst holding within our circle, within this greater awareness, gently draw your awareness back into the presence of the group of we here together. So we acknowledge that the worldwide Earth Treasure Vase practice itself and its mandala has within it its own nest of circles, its own many layered stories and ways. And that within these there is a legacy from the past that is now our heritage. That which has been given from the past to us here now in this present time. But also there are new stories, there are new dreamings, the unbornness that is now seeking to come into being. So those circles and their stories that are calling to us to now draw the future into the present. So firstly, I would like just to honour the lineage of the Earth Treasure Vase practice. Its beginnings were in Tibet 1,000 years ago. In the 8th century, the actual practice, the method to create the treasure vases was originally brought forth. Still in the 8th century, it was then drawn back into the inner world with the intention that it would remain there until there was necessity for it to emerge again. It then came forward in the 1800s, and notably this was the time of the Industrial Revolution, where we as humanity began to impose ourselves very much on nature and the world. Our current practice, as you know, began with the old man in the cave, the 106-year-old Lama, Charat Rinpoche, who had the depth and the wisdom to know and see who Cynthia was. And of course, to our beloved Cynthia, for her enduring commitment over these past 30 years and the enormity of the gifts that she's given to us, but to the world itself. Also to Lama Tulstrom, who actually crafted the original Earth Treasure Vases and still certainly is a way shower in the practice to this day. And then there's Auntie Margaret Catherine, our Indigenous elder from here, who Cynthia fully acknowledges as the mother of the vases. In Cynthia's words, it was Mama who brought us together as family and who brought alive this world community. And of course to Gaia herself and the many lands and the many people who are the Earth Treasure Vase story, those many upon whose shoulders we now stand. For my own part and that of my beloved Ava, we've had the honour and privilege of being part of the 5 pilgrimages here in Australia. The placements here were with both the first and the second generational vases. The last of the first generation was buried here on Auntie Margaret's sacred land, and the first of the second generation vases, at Mama's request, we placed at Gabadaman. So there were so many stories to choose from as to where to enter in today. But as I considered what to present from our experiences, I became aware that if I presented from there, that I would be coming from a very Australia-centric perspective. And I wasn't sure if this was appropriate or sufficient enough. After some deliberation, and certainly with some deeper layers of understanding then coming to reveal themselves, I did succeed, concluding that it was not only so, but it actually was becoming necessitated as I prepared this material. So I have continued in the trust and the hope that this be true. There were several arisings and understandings that as soon as I sat and put the fingers to the keyboard, etc., in came that which wished to enter into the circle, unbeknown to me when I began. So there were several understandings in particular that came forward, particularly in the notion to this Australia-centric perspective. So firstly and most simply, it was the notion that any stories from Australia here were there to mark the spot. They were simply representative of all those many, many world stories that are held within this Earth Treasure Vase practice. Secondly, it brought to mind a long time understanding that's abided with me, which is that new ways and new dreamings are actually conceived and gestated here in the Southern Hemisphere, in this land down under, the underworld, the place below the line. It's here that these conceptions, these ideations actually arise and come forward. They are then issued forth to in turn to be brought into form, into manifest existence by those forces and beings in the Northern Hemisphere. So in this way, potentiality that is held more esoterically here in the Southern Hemisphere is given actuality. It becomes exoteric in the Northern Hemisphere. Added to this is a further esoteric understanding presented by Dr. Jacqueline Hobbs. This is her words, that this ancient land of Australia holds the whole set of records of all the potentials of humanity, based on what is called the songlines, that it holds all the actual strands of humanity and potential materialization of all dreams, that a songline is like a plasma-type frequency which shapes reality. It is highly intelligent, and it actually belongs to the original matter behind the form of the earth. So with all of these directorates weaving themselves in, it seemed that there actually was a core gift wanting to be offered from this ancient land in the south to give life and form to those in the north who are crafting this third generation. So these were the understandings that were presenting themselves. At this point, I still had some rumblings, some unsureness as to whether this was appropriate for the presentation here. But then came that aha moment. I'll let you guess where I was when it came. Oh my goodness. Here was the spirit of Australia. When the first workshop was planned for Ghost Ranch that Ava and I were ready to go to, it was curbed just beforehand with COVID. The dedication that I had for my vase was the spirit of Australia. And at that time, my imaginings, and certainly acknowledging you never quite know where the vase is going to take you in itself. My vision at that stage was that the vase of the spirit of Australia would pass through the hands and hearts of people across this land, and people would add to that presence. So I had to do a chuckle and thought, plan A, plan B, is plan B, plan A. Here was the spirit of Australia coming forward in this way to present itself to your hands and hearts and to this worldwide community. It clearly was not to be bound by even the boundaries of this land. And it's also an impossibility at the moment. Even our boundaries inside, the borders inside Australia are closed at the moment. There's certainly not the likes of international flights. And I guess it's likely that this will continue for some time ahead. So, I think with the whole underpinning of the third generation, it was such a beautiful expression of immediately wanting it to outreach. So now the mob was gathered with the spirit of Australia in the centre of the circle. All that was left was to draw in its greatest allies, Auntie Margaret Catherine, and that sacred of sacred sites, Gabaramam. So let me bring in Auntie Margaret. Margaret Opinelli, Bohumiel
You froze.
Maggie, I don't know if you can hear or not, or if you've lost your connection. But Maggie, okay, it looks like, oh, there she is. Okay, very good. And you need to unmute.
Thank you. Okay, Mama. So I have lived in this, born in this country. I've been here for 63 years. And the welcome to country with Mama is Uncle Bob Randall of Uluru. Gave me such a deep connection to this land. And I guess you could say the reason why I'm here today presenting in this way. Mama was a bridge between the black and white peoples community, government. She took us all in and made us family. The enormity of her unconditional love was so vast, yet so personal. It was so present, but so pervasive. And all of this had its truth in spite of all the suffering that she, like so many Indigenous people, had suffered, still suffer today. With the ceremonies that we shared with Mama, one of my memories is she would sometimes wail. And it was a piercing wail from the depths of being. A wail that held the story of 60,000 years of continuous living culture. It was a wail that held the grief, the hope, and the knowing. She wailed the song of the ancient ones, and she wailed life into being. Mama was woven together with an innocence and an ancientness that should have defied each other, but instead had a wondrous embrace. She would often, when deeply touched, stream with tears of gratitude. Here are some of Cynthia's words about Mama. It was Auntie Margaret who brought the Earth Treasure Vase mandala to life and gave it meaning in a way that no one else has done. Mama called it my teacher. I can remember the morning sitting around a campfire. Auntie Margaret came out and sat next to Cynthia and casually said, "Last night I met your teacher." So the presumption was that she was there with the old man in the cave. Cynthia's mouth sort of, her eyes widened and her mouth dropped. And from then on, for Auntie Margaret, it was the teacher. Cynthia also said that Mama's vast view of unconditional awareness, the dream time, that she embodied so profoundly and completely, connected to country, the land, the earth, and the song lines. Mama brought everything together for me. Mama's unconditional acceptance of me and the vase was one of the greatest gifts of my life. Mama told us that this blessing would go out and on forever. It was also Mama who said to Cynthia after the burial of that first vase, which ignited the whole world mandala, that in doing so we had created a new dream to unstory. And then it was also Mama who called on us to take the vase to Gabaramang. So Nawala Gabamang is a 50,000-year-old rock shelter. Gabaramang was, in commas, refound, or rather came out from behind the veil, became visible again in 2006. It stands in completely remote country. To journey there, we had to fly in a helicopter. It was about an hour and a half's journey over the most vast, pristine, uninhabited land. Both the rock shelter itself and the extraordinary cave paintings that cover the ceiling of it have been dated and named the oldest on the planet. But what makes it more remarkable, as the archaeologists have said, is that Gabaramang is alive. It's the only place on the planet that's linked to a culture that is continuous and alive to this very day. And Mama was the custodian of Gabaramang. Visually, Gabaramang is a an arch-shaped rock shelter. It stands on little spindly legs, and it was created by actually removing huge blocks of stone. This was done 50,000 years ago. The surrounding areas, the sheer rock face, archaeologists have said that's what this was like. Somehow they have drawn out to make this rock shelter with little alleyways inside it. The floor inside the rock shelter is this fine black sand. It sort of colours your skin a little like soot. Clearly is not from a fire because it would have been there on the low rock shelter face. As soon as you step outside of the rock shelter, it's all pure white sand. I'll share some words that Cynthia wrote about Gabaraman. This is what she wrote in an Earth Treasure Vase newsletter, was before actually going to Gabaraman. Here we will receive the thread of deep time into the web of loving care for the planet. It is as if the Great Spirit and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, ancestors, elders and lineage masters who have ever watched over this project and practice, guiding and assisting in its realization, are saying, here, add this place into all the ingredients that make up the whole. Allow the energy from this location, from beyond the folds of time, to enhance and support the prayers that will carry all life into the new age, throughout space and time, on behalf of this beautiful planet we call home. Of all the pilgrimages and places we have been with this practice, we know with Gabaraman that our work will carry on. And after the pilgrimage, after we had actually been there, she said that this is the most sacred place I have ever visited. We are limited to words here on our call, and there's a visual element to Gabaraman that tells much more of the story. What I have done is created a post on the mandala. It's called the Blessings for the Third Generation. I put it there about a week ago. It has images. It has the photographs of Gabaraman, of the paintings that are inside. There is also film footage of Auntie Margaret at Gabaraman. And there is a way you can link in with that. It's there in the article to give you a visual image of what it is. JJ, lovely to see. JJ made a comment on it, if I may, JJ. JJ said, what an astounding place. It feels like home, as if we all helped create it long ago, as if it's part of us here and now. Beautiful, JJ. There is one short story I will tell. Well, Auntie Margaret at Gabaraman. It was actually journey before we went there ourselves. There was the crew of archaeologists and a team of filmmakers at Gabaraman. A beautiful friend here on our mountain was actually the cook on that dig. So she spent a lot of time with Auntie Margaret. So she told this story, which I find very telling. So before that mob went to Gabaraman, they spent about $30,000 to chase away the wild buffalo from the shelter to ensure the safety of the crew before they went. On the last day, my mama was not feeling very well and needed to leave early. She was concerned that she wouldn't be there to farewell the mob. So she left. At dawn on the morning, the crew was all out packing up camp. In a circle surrounding the rock shelter stood 70 buffalo. They stood there in absolute silence with their heads bowed, and they remained there till the whole camp was packed up and everybody left. So Mama, Gabaramang, and what she called those cheeky buffalo. Love it. So for me, there's, of course, a wordlessness that comes in trying to describe the experience in a place such as Gabaramang. So I tend to head towards poetry to express the unexpressible. So I'll start to complete this Gabaramang and read you the poem that I wrote after returning from Gabaramang. Nawala Gabamang, the sacred valley. Winds whisper of white fire. Stars come down and dare the horizon. Black earth, skin dark of long time story. Signature of the ancestors, inscribed in the blackness. Templed landscapes, veiling and opening. Vast of eons, spindle legs, monumenting culture, welcome us. It is time. Deep past, vast future. Ochre truth stories painted into time. Waiting, waiting, waiting in the blackness, waiting in the whiteness. Now it is time. Balmed by benevolent softness, with the givenness of this ancient present love. Shame's treachery is loosened. Now we can come. It is time. We are welcomed. Our reverence has been received. Our prayer songs have been heard. Our consecrating blessings hold true. Here now, with the call of the ancient of ancients, the world begins anew. Let it be so. Let it be so. Let it be so. So, beloveds, here's the circle that's gathered, singing up those world song lines. Certainly in preparing this material, I certainly feel like I was crafted. I hope it's touched into your beings. That we right here in this moment are not only supporting those at Ghost Ranch, but we ourselves are becoming those third generation Earth Treasure Bastards, bringing forth new generational dreams, right here, right now, together, here and there at the same time. So let's take what we've received, what we've is ours to weave in our own inimitable way as we go into our meditation. Add our blessings to this great dreaming, the new dreaming, as Mama said, that is being created. And thank you, dear hearts, for being the circle. So, dear Kendra, we'll pass it over to you for the prayers and the meditation. Thank you, lovely. Ava will read the poem from Cynthia West, but I would like that we dedicate it. Daddy David, who is Auntie Margaret's husband, passed away yesterday morning. I got news just as I was writing about Auntie Margaret, actually, for our preparation today. So we'll dedicate it to Daddy David, for his graceful transition. Be with Mama and the ancestral realm.
Poem of Cynthia West for us today. A place like that. Where do the butterflies go when they no longer swoop through late orange marigolds? Where are their songs that we never knew we heard? Is there a place like that for us? After our bones have returned to earth, is there a shelter to our quick-winged minds, a river to smooth our rough edges? Above, in the cottonwoods, crows teach their children the stories they will need to survive. The young ones will continue to dawn watch, passing it from one black feather-covered heart to the next. We are the last roses dropping seeds to bloom our kind forward. We are the deer, the rabbits, the blue jays, the pear trees heavy with fruit. We are every beating intelligence that doesn't strive or fear their time of breeding is too short. We don't want to be anything but what we are. Roses spiraling cones of fire from the center to forever, without questioning what would happen next.